Today, Red Sea announced their new ReefRun DC return pump and smart self-leveling skimmer. So in this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about both of them, including a load of information you won't see in the official Red Sea video, and make sure you stick around to the end when I'll tell you the price and release date. First off, let's start with the skimmer then. It uses the new DC pump, so it will be quieter than the old skimmer, and crucially that DC pump enables the self-leveling feature. Now you still have to set it up as with any skimmer, so you dial in the correct water level with the regulator and set the pump intensity to the value Red Sea recommends. But once you've done that, that is where the self-leveling comes in. With most skimmers, when you turn them on and they overflow, you need to manually adjust the things like the water depth the skimmer is sitting in, the pump intensity if it uses a DC pump, or the water level in the skimmer body. But the Red Sea skimmer has conductivity sensors that knows when the water is overflowing. When they sense that's happening, the controller reduces the intensity of the pump to lower the water level in the skimmer body. It will then automatically increase the intensity of the pump step by step to get back to the right level. And as the pump steps up, if it goes too far and starts to overflow again, the pump backs off, but this time not as low as it did the first time round, and it gently builds up again step by step until it finds the right level. And it will automatically repeat that process if your skimmer overflows months down the line. I'm told the process takes minutes, not hours, and the app has a self-leveling status so you can check in to see what it's up to. As well as self-leveling, it has a separate skimmer cup sensor that can tell when the skimmer cup fills up with what Mrs. Reef Dork calls fish poo water. When it senses the skimmer cup is full, it sends you a notification through the app and reduces the pump to 20% intensity. That way the skimmer keeps aerating the water but doesn't push the fish poop back into your sump. Then you can act on the notification, empty the skimmer cup, and it will go back to normal. The headline feature then is the self-leveling. Now Red Sea tell me that this isn't intended to be used so the skimmer can completely set itself up with no input from you. The idea is that it is worry-free from the future, so it prevents your skimmer overflowing for no apparent reason, as skimmers sometimes have a habit of doing. Now that can be for literally no obvious reason, or it can be if you start feeding coral foods, change to a more oily fish food, or any number of other things. And next we have the new DC return pumps. They're based on the Sea SDC range, but with a few key upgrades. Firstly, they've upgraded the controller, which now has easy push physical buttons and integrates the pumps into the Red Sea app, more on which later. They've also changed the cable, which is now 4 meters long and has a connector 1 meter away from the pump, which means when it comes time for maintenance, you can disconnect and remove the pump easily without having to fish around in your cabinet in that nest of snakes you call cable management. They've also added a hood so the pump draws water from the bottom and won't drag in eddies from the water surface. They've redesigned the rubber feet for better sound dampening, and of course added a couple of colour-coded touches so it will match up with all your other Red Sea equipment, including the plumbing on the new generation Red Sea tanks. Now I think there are some really nice upgrades to the Sea pump, and the reason that most people buy Sea is because of the 5-year warranty, which is carried over and is of course a sign of reliability. But having previously owned an SDC pump myself, I can tell you that the controller had touch-sensitive buttons that didn't work when your hands were wet and was an absolute nightmare, and I couldn't even get the app to work, so I can't tell you if that was any good or not. So on the face of it, it looks like Red Sea have taken a reliable product with a couple of glitches and updated it so it doesn't have any drawbacks. But the final and arguably most important thing to tell you about is the control box and app. The control box has 2 connectors so you can control a skimmer and a return pump from one box. It has 2 feed mode buttons, one for each device, and it connects to the ReefBeat app, which is where the clever stuff comes in. And through the app you can customize all sorts of things. For example, you can set it so the feed mode button turns off your return pump for an hour, sets your skimmer to 30% for an hour, and turns your Red Sea gyres down to 50%. And you can adjust the percentages and time limits to whatever you want. That means that, for example, if you want to feed your corals with Red Sea Reef Energy, you can set the app to turn your return pump off, so all the coral food stays in the tank for your corals, and turns your skimmer right down so it doesn't overflow as the sump rises, but keeps aerating your water, and turn the gyres down so they spread the reef energy around gently. And not only can you set those timers to run off the feed button, you can also set them on a schedule. So when your Red Sea doser adds reef energy, it can automatically apply your feed mode settings to all pumps. And it will do that at the same time every day at whatever time you want, which is particularly useful if you feed reef energy overnight when corals tend to have their feeding tentacles out, but you tend to be in bed. There's also a maintenance button in the app that will turn your Red Sea skimmer, return pump, gyres and dosing pump off altogether, which is really useful if you want to get your hands in the tank to place a new coral, move around your existing corals, or whatever else you do that requires all pumps to be off. For example, take beautiful top-down photos and videos of your corals. Now, while the feed mode is on a timer and will turn everything back on at the end, you need to manually turn the maintenance mode off when you've finished. But if you forget to do so, the Red Sea app will send you a notification so you can turn maintenance mode off using your phone. And if the dosing pump has missed any doses during that time, it'll just catch up after you turn it back on. And finally, you can set the skimmer to a daily schedule so it will turn the skimmer off for whatever period you want, which some people do if, for example, their nitrates are too low. So those are the features then, what about the prices? The skimmers come in 3 sizes for tanks from 600 to 1800 litres and cost £349 for the small one, £399 for the medium one and £509 for the large one. And the return pumps are £165 for the small, £215 for the medium and £265 for the large. But while those prices might sound pretty reasonable, you have to buy the control box separately and that costs £150. Now, if you add the cost of the control box to the price of the return pumps, they're actually comparable or even slightly cheaper than the likes of the equivalent Ecotech Vectra pumps or the existing CJF DC pumps. So the return pumps make sense as a standalone purchase when you factor in the cost of the control box. If you just want the skimmer and not the return pump though, they are quite expensive. With the controller added, the skimmers are £500 for the small one, £550 for the medium and £660 for the large. Now, given the extra features, that makes the large skimmer competitively priced against the other options on the market, but the small and medium skimmers are expensive compared to the competition. Now, if you buy both the return pump and the skimmer, you will of course only need one control box, which makes the small and medium skimmers much more competitively priced, particularly when you factor in their features. But if you're not going to buy the return pump as well, you need to think long and hard about just how much you want that self-leveling. £500 for a skimmer rated up to 600 litres is no joke. Now, if you've already bought the first generation Red Sea skimmer, the good news is you can get an upgrade kit for £180 that will turn your existing skimmer into the Gen 2 skimmer. And if you already have a CJF DC return pump, you can buy the Red Sea control box and connector cable, which will effectively turn it into the new Red Sea pump with full access to the Red Sea app. Now, this is not a sponsored video, Red Sea just sent me the marketing materials a couple of days early, but I am hoping to get my hands on some of this equipment in the spring of next year when they're released, so make sure you subscribe if you want to know my first impressions. And if you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week.